Well, by far the most painful Project Game Day is underway after the Ravens fall 17-10 to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Slow arriving because we're all sort of processing it. I'm Glenn. We've got our Super Bowl 35 champion, Femi Ayanbadejo, with us. Um, Femi, there's a lot to cover, obviously. Let me start with what I think are the biggest takeaways in monitoring and reacting with Ravens fans all day. I feel like there's a lot of confusion about the game plan going into today, and particularly the lack of called runs throughout the course of the game. Is that the biggest story to you of what happened today?
Um, no, it probably isn't. It's the second biggest story because even in spite of that, they had a chance to win the game if they played clean football. And they
Okay.
didn't play clean football. Emotionally, they weren't clean. They were too reactive. Um, the taunting, um, the roughing the passer penalties, the bumping of the helmet to helmet stuff, and even with the game plan being odd to start on both sides of the ball, in my opinion, way too much zone in the first half. Obviously, not running the football at all. When they were so close to breaking runs in the first quarter, they were literally one broken tackle away from probably having multiple explosive runs, and they still had multiple explosive runs. And I would say that what's frustrating is that the second half gave you a bit of a glimpse of what the whole game probably should have looked like. But the theme of the week for me has been if they play clean, they win.
Hmm.
And they played for the furthest thing from a clean game. And the biggest regret you'll always have is when you get in your own way. And they got in their own way today at every level. And that summarized. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not gonna be on here long because I just can't be. Um, I, I'm I'm feeling the same way all of you guys are feeling. I don't want to say anything that is a prisoner of the moment. Obviously, I'm going to be really calm because they had an outstanding season and they're the best team in football. And the loss today was not because they got beat. The loss today was because of, and once again, I don't even put the game plan first because even with the game plan, they still had a chance to win the football game if they play clean. So I'm going to start being redundant there. So I think I answered your question, Glenn.
No, I agree, Femi. I certainly understand the emotions. Let me cover a couple of things with you before you end up taking off, and then we'll continue the conversation with everybody else. I know Andrew is at the game; he's going to hop in here in a minute. Um, the discipline issues is that a lot of guys who hadn't been there before that got caught up into the moment. Is it's something. I think the one thing that was surprising to me is like I wouldn't have expected that today. This team seemed to be so zoned in for so long. Is it just, hey, there's a bunch of guys that don't understand this is Patrick Mahomes, the AFC Championship game. One small thing that you do where you lose your cool for a second. Like, how do we figure out what happened there that led to that lack of discipline?
Unfortunately, you're not going to get a good answer from anybody because all these gentlemen on the field today have been playing football their whole life. And we understand the magnitude of this game, but this game is the same. You know, you were really composed throughout the season. And all of a sudden today, you just forgot how to do it. I don't think it was that. I think I think there were some frustrating things happening out there. And regardless of the fact that it was the AFC Championship game, I just think it boiled over, and it boiled over against a team and a coaching staff and a quarterback that all you got to do is give them a crack.
Right.
And they gave him multiple cracks. No one's going to tell me the Ravens aren't a better football team than the Chiefs. Now, that doesn't matter, though, because at the end of the day, you decide the game on the football field. And in the 60 minutes that they had a chance to decide that game, and they had multiple chances to kind of the Zay fumble, the Zay taunt, he's going to have to learn a tough lesson today from that.
Yeah.
And I know he was heartbroken, and I know he's upset with himself about it. And I love Zay, and I love this team. I'm not here to jump on anybody today because we could point out multiple things, but this is why I don't like receivers diving for the goal line. You already had the first down. If you can just think clearly and just say, I already got the first down, I don't need to expose the ball. Every weekend, we see a receiver getting the ball knocked out at the goal line. We saw it last week with the Bills against
Yep.
this exact same team. And these are things that I believe receiver coaches and offensive coordinators talk to players about. But in the moment, you just see that goal line and your eyes get as big as plates and you do something that's out of character. And it really does. I'm not going to say it cost them the game, but that was one of the daggers. And that really made it difficult.
Did it feel to you like there was panic that set in? And I think this goes across play calling and into some of those things that happen. Like you fell behind and you just wanted to be out of that hole as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. That it almost like sort of crossed everyone. The play calling was off. Guys were doing things they wouldn't usually do. It just felt like there was suddenly this panic that overcame this group.
Yeah, they had a lot more time than I think that they thought that they had. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And Coach Monken, I think he got real pass happy. And and if you look at my text threads, I went on 10 text threads during this game. Run the ball,
Yep.
run the ball, please, please run the ball. And even with that, not running the ball, they still had a chance if they just play clean. Pass protection was shaky all day by the running backs, by the tackles. Aguilar had the drop pass on 3rd and 6 or 7 on the
Yeah,
first down.
early the
I
first
don't know if he
drive.
gets
Yeah.
the first down or not. Let me tell you right now, OJ McDuffie is the best corner in football. I don't care what anybody says. I've been watching this kid all season. He's the best corner in football. He might not be getting that title yet. He's the best corner in football. Kyle Hamilton, without a doubt, is probably the best Swiss Army knife in football. Just defensive all-around player. I give that nod to Kyle Hamilton. Both those gentlemen showed up today. They really did.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar seemed a little off to me today. He made some really, really good plays, and he made some decisions that were a little bit like, Lamar, you have room to run right there. You don't need to throw that
Yep.
ball into coverage. You don't need to throw that ball into triple coverage. And yeah, maybe likely it was PI, but they weren't calling those all game. You know what I mean? There were multiple PIs. OBJ had a PI they didn't call. You know what I mean? There was a hold on likely they didn't call. I mean, I'll tell you right now, the refs made themselves seen once again. And I'm not saying it's the refs' fault. I'm not saying that. The Ravens gave the Chiefs plenty of opportunities to win this game. But the refs, once again, did not seem to call this game, and not intentionally. There's no conspiracy theories. I don't believe in any of that. I'm not saying the league wants the Chiefs in the Super Bowl for ratings. I don't believe any of that
Right.
stuff.
Right.
But the calls were definitely slanted. And part of it was because the Ravens were the instigators in regard to most of the kind of taunting, roughing. I mean, they were doing it. So it's kind of like, well, we're in this groove now. I guess we're going to call those. And there were opportunities to call the same thing against the Chiefs, but they didn't call those penalties. And once again, it just adds to the difficulty of the comeback and the difficulty of trying to beat the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes. I put the responsibility of this game squarely on the shoulders of the Ravens, though. I'm not blaming refs. It has nothing to do with
Yep.
that. They had their opportunities. In my opinion, they're still the best team in football. But like I said before, because I want to keep qualifying my statement, games are not decided based on who has the best statistics, who has the most
Nope.
dynamic player on offense and defense. No, the game's decided between the whistles based on rules. And when it comes to that criteria, the Chiefs won the football game. There's really nothing else to say about it. And I'm disgusted. I'm gutted. I'm heartbroken. I'm so disappointed. I don't. It's like I don't even know what to do right now. I don't even want to watch this next game. I don't give
Yeah.
a shit about it. I don't even
Yeah.
want to watch it.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that I'm going to watch it and that I'll get over it. We've all been
So
through some type of thing like this in the past before. It'll be all good at the end of the day.
So there's a lot of stuff that I want to cover. Let me cover the big stuff here. I feel like there's always the insane overreaction. Like this is a crushing loss. There's gonna be insane overreaction to it. That's
Absolutely.
just the
Yeah.
it's the nature of who we are as
I'm trying not to
humans.
do that. You see that, Glenn? I'm
Oh,
really trying to
and
be
and
measured.
and Femi,
Yeah.
that's not my thing, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
do that sort of stuff. Um, to me, and this is the difficult part about it, because in the last couple of weeks we've been talking about how everything lined up for the Ravens. But I said I don't know that I think that what that leads to is people kind of saying like it's now or never. And the
Oh
difficult part
no,
for me is
no,
like
it's not
I've
never.
never felt that, right? Like I have felt like this is an ascending team, not a
Absolutely.
not a
Yeah,
descending
macro.
team.
So, Glenn, I'm so glad you said this because everything you're saying is exactly how I feel. I'm analyzing the moment on a micro level, but
It
macro,
sucks.
everything is upward for this team. There's no doubt. I don't know who's going to come back and who's going to leave, but the core guys are going to come back. Lamar is going to learn from this. Zay is going to learn from this. If they can just break through and get that first one, I think they go on a run. I think they figure it out. They get that kind of intestinal fortitude and that resilience is built and they understand what it takes to be measured and calculated. I give Pat Mahomes, and as much as I am so irritated by every commercial, I've never seen
Right.
so many commercials with guys on the field playing in my life. It's irritating, but they earn those flowers.
Of
Their
course.
success has gotten them that. I'm envious in not in a malignant way, but
Right.
envious in like, man, I want that for us. I
Yep.
want that for those guys. Let me say this: I want that for those players that wear purple and black because I know what that feels like. I'm completely invested in them. I completely believe in them. I believe in this coaching staff, but I think everyone learned a tough lesson today. And you're never too old to learn. You're never too experienced to learn. You've never had too much success to learn. I have this tattoo right here. You know what I'm saying? You probably can't read it, but it says character in adversity, humility in prosperity. And we
Mm.
can we can break this saying down in a lot of macro and micro ways. When Zay caught that big pass, he needed to show character and control
Yep.
himself. He
Yep.
needed to show humility in that moment where he had success. Humility in prosperity is the key. He didn't do that.
Yep.
And that kind of happened in little ways all night tonight. Guys were not showing humility in their success. And when character was required through adversity, they didn't do what they normally did. And that's the story of the game. It's not, as much as I didn't like the play calling and the lack of running the ball and the zone coverages early, they were still in position because these coaches are talented. They found ways to adjust and adapt, and these players are talented. They'll be
I think
back.
that's one of the Femi. That's one of the difficult parts, right? If Zay Flowers stretches out a half second earlier and scores a touchdown there, right? Like it's a tie game after all of that stuff. Like it's the difficult part to comprehend is that
Well, it'll be 17-14, actually, I think.
right, and they ultimately added another field goal. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the 7 point
Yeah,
difference,
but I'm
right?
saying but remember, we're
Oh
attaching
yeah,
a
butterfly
possibility of
effect.
thinking
Yeah,
it might
yeah,
change. I mean, maybe they score,
yeah.
they get turnover, and they go, who knows? Or maybe we don't know
Right,
what happens. But at
right.
that moment, there's plenty of time left, and they're down by 3, and they have all the momentum. They
Yep,
dominated the second half of the game, and
yep.
the biggest thing that held them back was their own getting in their own way. They got in their own way in the second half when they were balling, when they were making the plays they needed to make. And that's the way it goes. You got to get out of your own way sometimes.
If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org. Femi, what is the fair way to talk about Lamar Jackson today? What is the fair way? Because, it'll provide fodder for all of the nonsense, but we also acknowledge that like mistakes were made today. How do we fairly discuss Lamar Jackson's role in the AFC Championship game?
Yeah, I think he played a good game. He didn't play a great game, and he left yards out there that he normally scoops up. Like, a couple of throws he made, he should have just taken off. There was room to
Yep.
run, get first downs. And the biggest issue that I have is just the interception in the end zone in the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? Like that ball didn't need to be thrown, you know? And he played a good game still. I mean, to be honest, I can't tell you the overall statistics. I was not paying attention to stats at all. All I cared about was the final outcome. What were his final numbers, Carson? Do you have that? I don't even know.
It
How
was
many? What did
about
he throw
50
for?
He was about 50%. I'll give him to you right now.
Okay,
He was 20 of 37, 272, a touchdown, a pick, and 54 more on the ground.
okay. So for Lamar, that's kind of a pedestrian game for Lamar
Hmm.
Jackson. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You expect the completion percentage closer to 70%. You probably expect, another touchdown in there, a cleaner game. He ran the ball decently, but he probably could have had 80 or 90 yards rushing today. You know what I mean? But he kind of was doing what he last week in the same situation, he took off and he got chunk yardage with his legs. Today, for whatever reason, he didn't take off. And I don't know when the clock says go
Yep.
sometimes. And by the way, I am the person who a couple weeks ago said, man, I love the evolution of Lamar because he realized he can get 7, 8, 9 anytime, but he's looking to get 20, 25, 30 or a touchdown. And it's worked so much, but sometimes you just have to know, like, today's not that day, probably. I got to be old Lamar. I just got to go get what I need to go get because that's what's going to get us the win today. Like, we're not playing for a division title. We're playing for a chance to the Super Bowl. There's got to be a little bit of a different, almost play to play change in how you see the field and what decision you're going to make. And looking at the totality of this Chiefs defense, which is very opportunistic, very fast to the ball, very aggressive, you got to take what they give you. Those plays that you made against the Lions and Seattle and Miami and Cincinnati, this is a different defense.
Yep.
So you need to be probably a little bit more patient and just take those yards because that's how you maintain possession. And you were never really out of the game. I mean, you're down by 10. You weren't down by 21. And I think that goes back to your first question earlier. They started chasing early when they didn't need to. And that just shows you that no matter how seasoned you are, no matter how long you've been coaching, even sometimes we get a little bit caught, in our bubble, and we're not thinking about the time. And I don't know what the communication was like either. I don't know what Coach Harbaugh and Coach Monken were talking about, but I just felt like they definitely abandoned the run. Or, well, the run, they didn't abandon the run. They never really established it. And the times they
Correct.
did run it early, it worked. And my assumption is that they were going to come out, because if you look at the Chiefs, this is the problem of being successful, is that when you're successful, you're almost goaded. It's what we did to the Niners. The Niners thought they were going to show up in San Francisco or Santa Clara against us, and they were going to do all those things that they normally do, and it was going to work. No, not against this defense. Well, guess what? Today, all those things that normally work, I feel like we've had so much success with it, but at the end of the day, we're the number one rushing team in football. I really thought this game was going to be two offenses running the ball,
I
seeing who was going to not make a mistake, and then run play action. And then I thought, well, Pat has nice legs. He'll make some moves. He'll use his feet, and he did today. But I thought as the game went on, as I saw Kansas City get tired out, I expected that to happen a little earlier. Because if you run the ball, you tire them out a little faster. But because you were throwing it all over the place, you almost played into the only path that they had to victory by not doing the thing that they're worst at. They were never a good run defensive team all season. Now, they showed some better run defense as the season went on, but you saw what Buffalo did last week. Buffalo basically ran it at will. But guess what? Kansas City goaded Buffalo into mistakes. They kind of goaded us into some mistakes too. And guess what? The champion is still the champion. Now they're back in the Super Bowl. We got to watch them play another damn Super Bowl. Sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. Our buddy Josh Charles, he told me he wasn't coming on because he was going through it today, the same way the Femi, I know you're going through it, the same way we're all going through it, right? Like, you want to try to talk Josh off the ledge a little bit? You want to try to help him out?
He's a big boy. I know
I'm
he's
a big
disappointed
boy.
just like we are, but
I'm a big boy.
yeah.
I'll say this, after the last pick, you know, I'm a fan that usually will sit it out through and through, but I look up and I'm seeing cans of beer being chucked from the upper deck, multiple, 3, 4 cans of beer. And I'm thinking, and not like empty, not just flying like light pieces of tin. I mean, it's just shocking to me. We had to get out of there. I don't want my kid getting hit in the head with a can of
Mm-hmm.
beer. You know what I mean? People were
Mm-hmm.
furious, but that was just like the kick in the teeth, which I didn't need. On top of it, because then we had to roll out of there because I just didn't want to be a part of that. That just upset me as a fan.
I don't blame you.
But I came in and was like listening to the end of Femi, and I was texting with Reeta on the way over saying I couldn't do it today. But with 38 passes, 7 runs or something, it felt like I need to hear what the answer is there of why we did that. Like, I agree with Femi 100%. We were chasing as if we were down 3 scores, and we didn't run our offense. And it just felt like the big play was the big play, always the bomb down the side, or scramble and the bomb and Zay's open. Okay, great. But like all our intermediate passing, running up the middle, running to the side, it didn't feel like we tried any of that. Was Lamar checking down? I mean, what was happening there? Like, why checking out of those run calls? I don't
No, he
know.
wasn't. They
Like,
weren't being called. No, they weren't called. No, it
so they
wasn't
just
Lamar
weren't
checking out.
called. There you go.
They just weren't called. Yeah, they just weren't called.
By the way, there's a
So,
total of six carries for running backs today.
I
Six
mean,
total
that's
carries for the running backs.
Todd Monken, bless his heart, he has to answer to that. Why? What are we doing? That game was in hand. Like, it was winnable, even as poorly as we were playing at times. I don't know, to lose that way really, really stings, because I felt like, I thought we were going to do it. And even if we didn't, I thought these guys are going to go out there and give it their all. And I thought the
Yeah.
defense really did rally in the second half, right? I mean, they definitely started to get in some pressure. They played pretty well. Kelsey always seems to find a way to get open. But that one was a gut punch, man. I'm
Yeah, I
sure
think.
like
I mean,
everybody.
tell me if I'm wrong. And Carson, I think the Ravens had 250 yards of offense in the second half, and I think the Chiefs had like 60 or 70,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's about
You know what I mean? And the defense was lights out, but it was their composure. Once again, Their emotions got the best of them multiple times. The theme of the day for me, for as much as I didn't like the strategy to start the first half on offense or defense, way too much zone. Pat Mahomes destroys zone coverage. But guess what? Mike McDonald, damn it, if he didn't make an adjustment and that defense didn't make an adjustment, they sure as hell did. And the offense moved the ball up and down the field in the second half. But once again, composure, that character piece that I always talk about. I have this list of things, and I throw it to you guys all the time. I do a ton of guest speaking on leadership and self-actualization. And the 5 traits of a self-actualized person are authenticity, positivity, character, humility, and grace. I'm telling you, 2 or 3 of those were lacking today from a team that showed all 5 all season long. Really has showed it in spades. They've been the right guys for the job all season long. And when they needed to be who they are the most, I don't know what happened, man. I really don't know what happened. I'm baffled. I'm baffled by the emotional outbursts. I'm baffled by the roughing penalties. I'm baffled by the taunting. And it's just so out of character. And I really think that regardless of how many times we didn't run the ball, regardless of how many times we played zone or whatever we did, we still had a chance to win that game. And I think Josh is right. No matter what was going wrong, we still had a chance to win that game if we stayed composed. And the theme of the week for me, and I don't think you heard me say this, but I had hundreds of people reaching out to me all week. I run to them I was going to say Safeway, like I'm back in Santa Cruz. I don't go to Safeway anymore. I live in a building where Whole Foods is on the first floor. I'm in Whole Foods every day. You know what I mean? And all people ask me is, are we going to win? Are we going to win? I said, if we play a clean game, we're absolutely going to win. If they play a clean game and we play a clean game, we have the better team. In every category, we are a better team. But if we go out there and get out of character and we make mistakes and we get out of our minds and get outside of ourselves and we get in our own way, we will absolutely lose. And we did all that, and we still had a chance to win the game, which I just,
Femi, can I ask you a question? Because I know
sir.
You watched it, right? And I was
sir.
there. And I'm certainly not attempting to blame any of this solely on the refs. I think we all know what we saw.
I made some points about the refs today too, Josh. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed that. I was just curious because I wondered what it looked like on the TV, because some of the no calls, some of it just looked, some of it just seemed really touchy. Even that one roughing call, the taunting call, I guess he threw a football. I didn't even see what happened. It looked like he just looked down at him and said something. The guy behind me said
he flipped the ball on him. He flexed on. It was taunting, dude. It was taunting. It was. And I think, Josh, all the penalties the refs called were penalties. They were. But they missed a bunch of penalties by the Chiefs doing the exact same thing, unfortunately. And I think the refs got into purple penalty mode. Ravens are the aggressor. The Ravens are the bad guys. You know what I mean? First of all, just to preface this again for anyone that comes into this late, I don't believe any conspiracy theories. I don't think the powers that be, wanted the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and not. I don't think any of that. I just think that the Ravens were so outside themselves and their normal emotional control that they did things that they normally don't do, and they started kind of the way, like the penalty on Travis Kelce. He initiated all that stuff, but guess what? They didn't call it on him. They called it on Van Noy, right? There was guys getting thrown and knocked over. I saw Rashee Rice straight up knock somebody over, give him a shiver in a shoulder. They didn't even call a 15-yard penalty on that. I saw, is it Graham? Who's the other tight end for
Gray? Noah Gray. Noah Gray.
Gray ran a blatant pick 4 yards down the field with a shoulder. They did not call it. Now, once again, the refs did not decide the outcome of this game. They did not. We decided the outcome of this game. Our out-of-character behavior decided the outcome of this game. And I still want balance, and I still want the refs to call the stuff right. You know what I mean? It's just another thing that makes me frustrated. But at the end of the day, I think the story for me, once again, is that we got it in our own way, no matter how you call it. Whether it's the play calling, whether it's a strategy, whether it's the lack of the run, whatever it is, we got in our own way. And with that being said, we still had a chance to win. I know I've said this 4 times, but I think that's the reel that's going to run through my brain until probably we're in March.
Real quick before I bring in Reeta, just because I don't know if everybody saw it when Carson put it up on the screen, John Harbaugh really did not give an answer about the lack of rushing attempts. He said it was that type of game, which is something that John Harbaugh says a lot when he doesn't want to answer a question like that. My gut is tomorrow he'll probably say something like, yeah, that got away from us. That was a mistake. It won't make any of us feel better, But having done enough of this with John Harbaugh, this is pretty typical. He answers the question that way and then kind of answers the question a different way a day later after he has a chance to think about it. Let's bring in Reeta. If you think that the Ravens had a bad day, Rita's had a day. Friend, we've all been kind of just sort of talking through it. Femi's take about the discipline, I think, is significant, stunning. The lack of discipline from the Ravens, play calling, preposterous. How you feeling in total?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. First and foremost, I want to say I'm not going to be in one here long. I still have not found my purse. Got all the way to Hutt Valley, and my purse was gone. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of them type of days, man. Maybe it is my fault. Maybe I should have just stayed and let my misery just sink in while I was there. But in terms of what we saw today, I saw a team that I didn't recognize on both sides of the ball. And I will say that eventually the defense went back to what it is that they do well at some point after those 2 touchdowns were scored. But prior to that, they was doing something that they don't typically run. In terms of what the offense was doing, I tweeted this I only saw 8 rushes amongst the running backs, not including Lamar's rushes, and then 37 passes. And when you are used to having balance, and then you come out with 0 balance, you're not going to win the football game now. And so, the Chiefs did what they do. They did exactly what they have done all year long. They didn't change a thing. And for whatever reason, the Ravens decided to play into their game, which makes no sense to me. They have 2 very good cornerbacks, and yet you guys want to continue to throw the ball when you know that William Gay is out with a neck injury. I don't understand the logic behind it. You wanted to play cover 2 when y'all really don't do that a whole lot all year. All right, finally, y'all figured it out. But for whatever reason, the Ravens offense just were essentially pressed to pass the ball. Even if you do pass the ball, I'm confused as to why a guy like Rashad Bateman, who I saw has man coverage, nobody on his side, essentially the whole game, gets no burn, and then by the time you do decide to throw the Rashad Bateman's way, he's double covered. So there's a lot of lapses here that you could not afford to have against a well-run machine like the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs just continue to do what they do. The Ravens played for whatever reason into what the Chiefs wanted to do, and that's how you lose football games. And so Harbaugh has a lot of questions to ask that, but also Femi too, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. I don't want to put it all on Monkey because I feel like some of that was on Lamar. I felt like he saw the man coverage and was like, oh, I see man. I'm going to bet on my guy against this guy, and that's how you end up with 37 passes as opposed to 8 rushes.
Yeah, I didn't see Lamar check out of any runs. You know what I mean? I think that the passes were called upstairs, and he ran them. So Lamar, I thought Lamar played good, but I think he left some plays out there. And for me, they didn't call enough QB power. They didn't call enough zone read. There should have been more opportunities for Lamar. First of all, they should have ran the ball more, period, with Gus. And I would say that the running backs in regard to pass protection was not great today across the board, no matter who was in there. But Justice Hill made some plays as he's made all year, especially the second half of the season. He made some plays. And even Gus had a couple checkdowns that he got the ball and ran with it and made some plays too. But Reeta, I think the biggest issue that I have is that the Ravens, in my opinion, across the board, just did not display the mental and emotional control that they normally do. I felt like they reacted to things that, Travis Kelce's out there taunting them. He let them get in their head a little bit. And it probably, and what's kind of odd to me, I saw this clip, and maybe you guys saw this too, but they were moving Justin Tucker's setup out of the way for some reason. I don't know if that was a real thing or if maybe the Ravens were using both end zones, but I felt like the intimidation and the mind games probably started during the week. Actually, they were going back and forth a little bit, but it started before the game started. You know what I mean? And I saw the Chiefs, it's almost like, damn, these dudes are doing a master class on psychological warfare this game. And the Ravens are just hook, line, and sinker. They're just responding to all of it. And I felt like most of the year they did not respond to any of that stuff. They kind of showed up, did their job, punched the clock, got in, got out, and we're on the first thing smoking right back to Baltimore when they were on the road or when out of the stadium. You know what I mean? Like, it just seemed to me that there's a lot of things that were out of character, from some of the game plan to the response on the field. But I want to end with this though, and I'm gonna dip out of this lane.
Yep.
I want you guys all to know that I believe this team is just getting going. Like this evolution of Lamar, it's just the first phase of it. I'm glad Coach Monken's coming back. I'm glad that Coach McDonald's coming back. I know we're all hurting right now in the micro, but in the macro, Glenn, you said it, this team is on an ascent. I believe that. I believe they'll be right back here next year. And I think Zay is going to take some tough lessons from this. He's going to learn the hard way. I won't go over that play again about trying to be mindful about, you had the first down, you didn't need to put the ball in harm's way. Every week we see a DB knock a ball out at the goal line and the ball roll into the end zone or roll out of bounds. Almost every week we see it. But I think we get our eyes get as big as saucers. We see that goal line and we just forget all sign or all ideas of risk and protecting the ball. We're going to score. And I get it and I understand. But that just kind of plays into the narrative that I saw tonight. We're just a little bit off, a little bit out of character. Like, Lamar was good. He wasn't great. The defense was not good in the first half, but they were definitely great in the second half. The offense moved the ball up and down the field in the second half. But the story for me is that mentally, emotionally, they were out of character, and they just didn't they didn't play to their normal standard, and they got in their way. I really believe they got in their way. I still believe that the Ravens are the best team in football. And I'm saying this more for you, Reeta, because I know you didn't get to hear this part of it, and maybe you guys can kind of riff on this later. I still believe they're the best team in football, but unfortunately, the game is played on the field in real time, in real life, and all that shit on paper is not really relevant, especially when it comes down to, survive and advance. And they didn't survive, and they will not advance, unfortunately. And it's going to be a gut punch and a heartbreaker for everybody. And I feel that. I just didn't want to end this on a negative, because they did so many amazing things this year. And I know that Lamar and those guys don't care about those records, but as a fan and as a former player, I love that they have all those records. I love all the things, all the records that they broke. I love all the accomplishments that they had. I love watching their journey. In some ways, for me, they were probably a year ahead of where I thought they would be, looking back at last January, last January, looking at where we were and how quickly they ramped up to get here. No doubt, with these eyes, knowing what we saw, they should absolutely be in the Super Bowl, playing for a Super Bowl championship, because they are ready. But when the season started, I thought they were probably a year away from this game. And they
I
were
did too.
This game, you know what I mean? But I believe they'll be back in this game next year. I believe that 100%. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm proud of these guys. I'm heartbroken. I'm upset. But I think I controlled myself today. I don't think I said anything crazy.
No, not at all. Femi, love you. Appreciate you hanging out with us all season long. We will be in touch.
Bye, Femi.
We'll be
Glenn,
talking. All right.
Bye, Femi. Glenn, I'm not going to stay long either, because I'm waiting for someone to come get me. But I just want to say that I'm surprisingly not as upset as I thought that I would be. I, like Femi, thought that they were a year early. I thought that the Ravens were going to be in New Orleans actually next year instead of Las Vegas. So it is disappointing, because they over exceeded my expectations for this year. And that also, and I'm not trying to discredit what Kansas City did, because I think that, Kansas City obviously deserves the credit that they should get for the win. But I don't think that the Ravens played the game that they know how to play. I feel like that they went out of the realm to be something different and something that they're not, as opposed to who they are and what got them there to begin with. So hopefully they'll learn from those mistakes and learn to not do those things again. And so on that note,
hang on, Reeta, before you go, because I want to give this to you and I want to give it to Josh, right? I want to pose it this way. Is it, if the Ravens had gone out and this was a duel and they lose 36-35, the way they beat Kansas City a couple years ago, 36-35, right? Do we feel less pain about it because we say, think you gave it the best shot? They just,
yes.
Is it more painful because you just genuinely don't believe the Ravens gave it their best shot, their best effort today?
That's absolutely for me. Absolutely. I don't think that they did anything on offense that they are used to doing. And I don't know why. I don't have an answer for that. I would love to hear what the offensive coordinator has to say about that. I would love to hear what Lamar has to say about that, because there were a couple times I'm gonna disagree with Femi. I'm glad he's not here because I ain't feel like fighting tonight. That I saw him wiggle his hands and he did check out of a play. So, and if I know what he's doing, then clearly Kansas City knows what he's doing. So, I just don't understand. I don't understand how they got to being so pass happy against a Chiefs defense who was top 5 in pass defense. It makes no sense to me. So football to me is a sport that is very simple, and coaches oversimplify it. And in this case, Andy Reid made it very simple, and John Harbaugh or Todd Monken or Mike McDonald, whoever, oversimplified it. And that's what happened today. But again, I'm not discrediting what Kansas City did, because they stuck to who they were. I'm criticizing the Ravens because who we saw today is not who they were. And that is the part, because if they lost 36-35, at least they would have been staying true to who they were. And they didn't do that today. That's where I stand with that.
All right, Reeta, love you. Good luck. Find
All
your
right,
purse.
guys.
Be safe.
Love y'all. I know. Thank y'all. I'm
Yeah,
already
all right.
canceling credit cards.
Ay, what a day. Josh Charles, you're gonna get to have the final word tonight. Your just your reaction to that premise. That is it more painful because we don't feel like we saw the 2023 Ravens give it their best shot at the end?
Yeah, like Femi said, I do think we're the better team, but better team doesn't always win, and clearly that was the case tonight. Hats off to KC, though. When they needed to make plays, they often made the play or they made the throw. And, Mahomes is Mahomes, and he did it, and he got those things done, and we didn't deliver in a lot of those moments. So I agree, though. That is most painful, as it felt like this was, whether we thought they were going to be here or they were a year early than where people thought they would be. They were here. They were dominant. They were a historically dominant team this year. And in the most, pivotal game of the year to get to the big dance, they, as a whole team, they didn't deliver. Yes, the defense stepped up and was ferocious in the second half. I thought Jordan Stout punted the ball much better than he did last week, which was incredible. That's a low bar from last week, but still, there were some things to look at and say, okay, and we had a couple of nice big passes, but ultimately, it didn't feel like we were dictating the terms of the game. It felt like we were always reactive as opposed to making them reactive, and that just was confusing to me. Like the adjustments that we made or didn't make, the abandoning of the running game. That was the one, the whole game I was out there saying, wait, I don't have the numbers in front of me. How many runs have we had? Yeah. I think the one run I saw was like, is that our first run of the second half? And it was. We just completely abandoned that. And that is so much of who we are, as good as Lamar is. And I just need to understand what the thinking was there, because it felt like we didn't give them our best shot. If we had given them our best shot and lost, and Mahomes just beat us, I think I could live with that one more. This is harder for me because I felt like we didn't play our best game.
It felt like panic everywhere. It just felt like panic all across the board. Real quick, what company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even virus-free? It's AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore and Annapolis at ajmichaels.com. Troy's been hanging on for a while. Let me squeeze Troy in real quick. Troy, I know you're bummed. I know you're feeling it the way the rest of us are.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, everybody. Good evening to all. Whoa, I didn't expect this to come. I'm still mind boggled, but first I have to say this to this team: great season, #1 seed in a tough conference. First of all, with the teams you got to deal with, you're the #1 seed in the AFC. Great job. That's saying something. With Kansas City going to the Super Bowl, Buffalo, great job. I gotta say it honestly. We had a phenomenal season. There's a lot of great highlights, but it ends this way. It ends this way. I don't know what to say. You got a lot of decisions to make in the offseason. I don't want to talk about that right now, but you got a lot of decisions to make, particularly at that running back position. Boy, oh boy, you got decisions to make. You don't know your coordinators are going to be out the door. You don't know. That's what we play the offseason for. So let me leave it at that.
Troy, I appreciate you, buddy. We're all going through it right now. I feel everything you're saying.
And by
And
the way, real quick, Glenn,
yeah,
sorry, best post game show in the business. This is our last time.
thank you, buddy.
Glenn, y'all do a good job every single week, giving us fans a chance to be on your show. Y'all are the best. Period. Rita, all y'all, Femi, even John Charles, y'all awesome, man. Y'all awesome. Seriously.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Really appreciate it. That'll probably ultimately do it for us, and it's painful, and we're gonna have all week to talk about it, and we're gonna have all off season to talk about it, and it ain't gonna be fun. That's just the reality of it. Appreciate not Troy, all you guys.
Quick question, real quick to the whole panel. What do you think is the biggest off-season question? I want to bring this.
Yeah, Patrick Queen's probably the biggest right now, right? Like that's probably the top because you assume if they're gonna use a tag, it's on Matabike.
I gotta think of the running back situation too, because
yep,
coming off IR, and
yep,
either you pay him or you don't.
100%.
There's Derrick Henry, there's Saquon out there,
and then there's the question of did they see enough from Keaton Mitchell that they wanted to commit to him as the guy? And can you do that with him coming off the It's a lot. There's a lot there. It's very high on the list. 100%, Troy. All right. Well, thank you all for hanging out with us all season long. My crew has already departed. It's a tough day. I understand. Carson, thank you for helping us out all season long, buddy. Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you, pal. Carson's been working hard.
100%. Hey, guys, 60 days and Grayson Rodriguez takes the mound on opening day. Let's think about that. All right, let's try to think about that.
Try to be positive.
No Shohei Ohtani. Remember that.
Try to be positive. Don't forget, if you're going to be betting Super Bowl props, you want to do it with Superbook. Superbook.com. Download the Superbook app. Use the code GlennClark23 when you sign up. You'll receive up to $250 in a same-day first bet match. For Rita, for Josh, for Femi, for KZ, for Andrew Stecca, for Carson, I'm Glenn.